So you've shared that you felt some challenges from your relationship with your family as a result of how they responded to you when you lost your baby. Did you have challenges with any other relationships, friendships, or co-workers, anything like that, where you didn't feel supported by other people that you needed support from as well?
I mainly just closed off myself to other people. Like, I just stayed to myself. I used to go to work, come home. I was drinking like heavily at the time. At the time, my father was living with me, and it was like, he didn't know. Like, I would literally like start drinking from the time I woke up to when I went to sleep, and he had no idea, because I was just in my room, like not really coming out. And he used to always tell me like, come out the room, and it's like, no, I just wanted to stay to myself.
So you kind of just went into like isolation, and I guess with the isolation, you weren't openly expressing your feelings or your grief at the time. Were you ever diagnosed with, or do you think you experienced any level of postpartum depression on top of the grief that you were feeling from Mahliah's transition?
Yes, I definitely think I was going through postpartum depression and going through depression at the same time. So it was definitely like hard on me. So during that time, going through all of that, like I picked up a lot of weight. I just really didn't care about myself at that time.
Monique, you mentioned in a previous conversation with me that over the course of a year, you had picked up a substantial amount of weight. About how much was that in that time frame?
I would say overall, I picked up maybe 150 to like 180 pounds.
So when you go into what we call complicated grief, so by definition, complicated grief means a grief that is going to be heavily weighing on a person for 12 months or more. Sometimes people tend to pick up good habits or unhealthy habits. And you mentioned that you were drinking alcohol and you were also eating as well. But I do want you to understand that everyone's brain has neurotransmitters, right? And one of those neurotransmitters is called dopamine. And dopamine operates off of like a reward system, so to speak. So what happens is people see as being able to obtain something, there's a reward from it, and the reward for it is they will feel better. So when people are grieving, that is how they tend to pick up unhealthy habits. And it doesn't have to be a consumption habit. It could be consumption in terms of drugs, alcohol, it could be eating, but there's also a lot of other things. Like you'll hear people say, well, oh, I need retail therapy, and they go into this habit of overspending. Some people overindulge in other things, or they get fixated on certain things. Some people become hoarders because they can control it. Most of the habits are things that the person can control without anyone else interfering. And that is why eating can be one of those habits. You don't need anyone to help you with it. You're an independent woman, so you didn't need like a ride to the liquor store. And if you had your own money, you were able to pretty much control the whole situation. And then you say you went in your room, so there was really no one to stop you. Even though your dad was there, he wasn't there to say, you can't do it, because as you said, a lot of the times he may not even have realized it. And I just said all that to say that although in a hindsight, it may not have seemed normal to you, but for a person that's in a state of complicated grief, it may seem normal, and they're just seeking out ways to try to feel better. Those are things that activate the dopamine in your brain to help you feel better. So drinking and eating, are there anything else that you feel like were unhealthy habits that you picked up during that time?
No, I would say those were the only two things.
Were you said you were isolated, so you were just spending a lot of time to yourself. Do you feel like anyone really picked up on that or tried to say, Monique, hey, I noticed you're in your room. I noticed that you have alcohol in the house. I noticed that you're gaining weight. Did anyone kind of try to pull you aside and help you or bring it to your attention?
Well, I used to like hear my dad talk to my mom on the phone and like tell her like, oh, that girl haven't came out her room like all day. Like all she does is like lay around. And throughout the course of the years, like, yeah, people tell me like, oh, like you look like you're gaining weight. But at that time, like I didn't care. Like I was just so depressed. Like I really didn't care like what people thought about me.
When you perceived it, as they said it to you, did you perceive it as someone is trying to help me, they see that I'm not doing well mentally, or did you perceive it as someone trying to be insulting towards you?
I don't think I took it like as an insult. I think I just took it as like, oh, they probably just haven't seen me in a while, type of thing. Because I really barely like was going out around people. So
when people take on habits such as drinking or eating as a result of grief, we often call it comfort eating. But can you explain what the process of that was? Did you become a binge eater, which means that I just eat like a lot of food at one time to make me feel better, or I just gradually eat over the course of the day? Because there's a difference in the way it works. Most of the time, binge eating is like overindulgence in trying to just get a heavy dose of dopamine at one time. And then the gradual is I'm trying to maintain this mood all day.
I wasn't binge eating. What I was doing was I stopped cooking. So it was like every time I ate out. So it was like I was like lazy, like not wanting to cook, just okay, I'm gonna just order something and just eat. So it wasn't me binge eating, it was just I wasn't eating the right things.
And I don't think you were being lazy, Monique. You were in survival mode. So, you know, some people may perceive it as lazy, but anything that takes a lot of effort mentally when you're grieving, you may just look for something easier to do. So cooking, I gotta go to the store, I gotta prepare, I gotta think about what I'm gonna cook, I have to wait for it to get ready. That's just piling on more to what you're already dealing with. So I don't think you were being lazy. I think that you were just in survival mode and you did what you thought was best to just get through the day. So Monique, we also talked about repression, and repression means that I'm bottling my feelings up, I'm not really talking about it. Was that mostly because you just didn't feel like you had any support, or did you also have just fear of talking about it because maybe it made you feel like you were reliving the situation again?
I tried to express myself numerous times because even after my daughter passed, I still was in communication with her father. More so because he lost a child prior to. So when he lost his child, it was like we were friends at the time. So I was there for him. I comforted him. Like, you know, he cried to me. And I at least thought like we would be able to like bond, like he would be able to help me get through, you know, my situation.
Right.
But it was just a constant like arguing back and forth. And so because of the response that I got from him, I didn't feel comfortable like expressing myself to other people and letting them know like what I was going through, because I honestly felt like nobody really cared.
That is hard. That is hard. Did you feel any sort of survivor's guilt as a result of Mahliah's passing? And when I say survivor's guilt, I just mean like I don't deserve to be here anymore because my child isn't here. Did you have any of those types of feelings?
Most definitely. Like once I did leave the hospital, because mind you, I was there all day by myself. Like when I left, like I had to take an Uber home, and like the hospital I was at, it was like downtown, so it was like a big lake downtown. I really like thought to myself like I really wanted to like get dropped off at the lake and just like jump in a lake or something, because I was just like so depressed. Like I definitely like didn't want to be here anymore.
You left the hospital in an Uber, and you didn't, no one reached out to you to say, hey, can we come pick you up? You know, at least just drive you home.
Like you said, like I'm always in survival mode. It's like I always like, I feel like by myself like all the time. So, I mean, like my mother, like she was calling me, like checking on me, but it's just like, why couldn't you just be there like in the moment, like with me? Like why did I have to go through that whole situation like by myself?
After Mahliah's passing, did you ever go into any sort of formal therapy?
No, I kind of wanted to, but at the same time, it was like, because of what I was going through, like with my family, with her father, it was like, they don't care. So like, I know this person not gonna care to talk to me. Like, it's not gonna be like a sincere kind of thing. So I just dealt with it on my own.
That is one of the main reasons why people don't seek therapy, because some people feel that an outside voice is helpful because the person can see it from all angles, and then other people feel that this person doesn't know me, they don't truly know me as a person, so they can't really help me work through my problems. And I just asked that because it just sounds like you really didn't have the tools that you needed. Even if it wouldn't bring your child back, it would have given you maybe an easier path to move forward, even though it would be hard. I mean, no one would lose a child and not have a hard time, but maybe some tools that could have helped you, since you did have such a lack of support from the people you wanted the support from. Do you think that your experience with grief has any sort of impact on how you handle relationships now? And when I say that, I mean, sometimes when people go through what we call extreme grief, they either have very strict boundaries with people, or they have a very high tolerance level with people. So some people will just cut people off at the drop of a dime because they don't want to go into a state of having to deal with a lot of emotions. And in the same token, some people become highly tolerable so that they don't have to go to the other end of cutting the person off and going into that state of emotion. It's basically another method of survival. So it's like I would maybe allow more than I should from a person because I don't want to be in a situation where I have to endure pain again.
I would say I went through both. Like even before I lost my daughter, I really had a low tolerance for things. So I used to really cut people off like the drop of a dime. Like I didn't allow myself to like love or feel any type of emotion towards people. And then my last relationship, it was like I allowed myself to like open up, and he basically was like there for me and helped me get through what I was going through. So because I endured like so much with him, I didn't want to have that emotion or feel that emotion of losing him. So I didn't create boundaries. Like I took a lot from him because I didn't want to experience a quote unquote another loss.
And that's very common when you've gone through that level of grief. Mm-hmm. Your response to other relationships can be, well, I can control how this ends. Mm-hmm. Because when we lose someone like so unexpectedly, we get a very much a sense of not being able to control things. Mm-hmm. And because you have to go through that and you can't control the situation, sometimes your response to situations moving forward is, well, I can control how this ends. Mm-hmm. I lost control of this in the past and it sent me to a dark place. I don't want to go there anymore, and I can control this one, so I'm going to hold on to it as much as I can. Mm-hmm. I also want to let you know that when a person experiences a tremendous loss like this, especially a loss of a child, and they are also isolated in the way that you say they were, a lot of times those people have a lot of love with no place to go. And so you will see people get pets. They will start foundations in memory of that person, or you will see them do more to serve and serve in the community, or you will see them seek out more relationships, friendships, partnerships, companionship, those type of things, because that all that love that you had inside of you that you were planning to pour into your child is still there, you know. If you consider yourself to be a loving person, and most of us, it's our human nature to love, and then it's like it got trapped and you were never able to pour it out. So you may move around in relationships and just how you operate in general with people, with just a lot of love to give and looking for somewhere to put it. And sometimes that does cause us to be more tolerable of situations than we would be in the past, in our past self.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because after dealing with that, I did find myself in a very loving relationship. I was able to finally give my all to somebody, you know. I felt like that relationship was for me at the time.
Actually, that's a healthy response. So no matter how that relationship turned out or turns out, it still shows that you were courageous enough to bring yourself to a place where you were able to open up and love again. So you always have to see that as a good, positive thing, because you were able to allow yourself to do something that you had been afraid to do because of dealing with different types of emotions and depression. And it shows that you are uplifting yourself and showing progress and wanting to explore new things.
Yeah, I definitely was open, allowed myself to be open to experience love again, you know.
So how do you feel about motherhood now? Are you open to going into the journey of motherhood again, or is that something that you would just keep it with Mahliah and the memories you have of her, and just move forward in other ways in life?
I struggle with it at times. I go back and forth. When I lost her, I had this extreme need to get pregnant again and want to have another baby. And then I went to a time where I don't want to experience that again and possibly losing it, because I'm I don't know how I would take it. So I go back and forth about it, about wanting to have another baby, but I kind of get scared sometimes because I don't want to have to go through what I went through before. So
and that's common too. When women either suffer miscarriages, a series of miscarriages, or they deliver a stillborn child, or have a child born and due to complications not be able to survive, they kind of become very anxious about the what ifs. And so we always tell people, if you do go into another pregnancy, you have to just remain positive, because you don't want to put that stress on yourself and your mind and your body, or that anxiety from thinking about something that happened in the past, because a lot of people do go and have very positive childbirthing experiences after that. So at this point, we talked about a lot of things, and your resiliency and your strength. What are the positive things that you feel about yourself that have been impacted the most since that occurred?
it took some time, but more so throughout the recent years, is to stop being so guarded. Allow people to get to know me. Stop cutting people out of my life and just be more open. Don't be negative when it comes to new people entering my life.
And what's the highest compliment you could pay yourself right now? Like if you look back at that girl who was sitting in the room and, you know, depressed, drinking, and, you know, eating out. What's the highest compliment you can pay yourself now? Like that you say, you look back and you just proud of yourself.
I would say the strength that I had. More so like, even though I was going through a lot and I was weak in those moments, I didn't give up. I didn't allow myself to take myself out. Like, I still chose to wake up each and every day and got through the day. So I didn't allow myself to get that deep enough in a depression to where I just gave up.
Are you confident that you have moved past those thoughts that you shared where you were in the Uber and you passed by the lake and you thought to yourself, I should just jump in the lake? Are you confident that you're past any of those types of thoughts at this point?
Yes, I'm definitely past, you know, that stage in my life.
Looking back as a mother who had a baby that transitioned, when you look back, if you could give any sort of advice to another mother that would go through a situation similar to yours, you know, everybody's different, but as you've shared so many things today about your journey, if you could look back and tell someone maybe something that would help them or something that they could do to get through it, what type of advice would you share with someone who experienced a loss like yours?
I would say don't isolate yourself. If you don't have a good support system, talk to someone as far as like a therapist, a counselor, someone who can help you process your feelings and your thoughts. Don't allow yourself to be in a dark place. Like, don't stay there.
And is there anything that you would like to see happen in your immediate family in order for maybe y'all to just have a little bit more understanding with each other or a little bit more positive outlook and moving forward due to the resentment that you have held by the way they responded to Mahliah's passing?
I think my family in general, we're not really emotional people. So I don't think they've done it intentionally, but I've always been like one of the strongest people in my family. I've always been like the strong sister. So I think they kind of felt like I'll be okay, like I didn't need them. So I think they just felt like I was just strong enough to just deal with it. So I don't think it was intentional. I don't think they realized like what they were doing.
Right. And that's not unusual in families. If you feel like you have a dynamic with your family members and you feel like you truly know them, so you feel they may have even had just a certain level of confidence in you. Well, Monique, she'll be okay because she knows how to work through things. And then also sometimes people just don't really know what to do. And people also have a tendency to wait for someone to say, hey, I'm having a hard time right now. Could you do this? Or could you come sit with me? Could you come talk with me? And maybe they were so looking for you to do something like that. But I think it's very admirable of you to acknowledge your family and to say that you didn't think that they meant any harm by it.
I think that's just how we grew. Like, I was always like the strong one. Like, they felt like, oh, she'll be okay. Like, she got it, you know? But I would say that was like the one time in my family. Well, that was the one time in my life where I felt like I needed my family.
So you shared with me that you really don't speak about Mahliah too often. But have you done anything in her memory, or do you have any keepsakes or anything like that to just remind you of her or comfort you in times of need?
Well, I do still have her ashes. I still have her wristband, like her blanket. I still have everything of hers. And, you know, I made sure I took a lot of pictures, videos. So whenever like I miss her or think about her, I just go through my phone or I have this closet where I have all her stuff in. So I just go through it.
Thank you so much for sharing your story about Mahliah. Is there anything else about Mahliah or your journey now or how you feel today that you would like to share?
Today, I don't feel too much sadness. I definitely feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders because I never opened up or expressed like my true feelings about Mahliah. Like that's something that I really keep like close to my heart because I know how I don't know, like I just always want to keep that part of me like protected. Like I don't want people to attack that part of me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's why I don't really talk about it.
And that's a common response too. It really is. It's like that's a piece of me that I don't have to give to anyone else, or I don't have to share with anyone else. That was a moment that belonged to me and her, and it's mine. And it's a way of keeping her memory safe.
Yeah.
Monique, thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing your story about Mahliah. And we do have one last thing that we're gonna do, and we're gonna do it in Mahliah's honor. If you would join me outside, and then we will go into that.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Monique, at this time, I'm going to present to you your butterflies in memory of Mahliah. You stated that you were never able to do an official memorial service for Mahliah when she passed, and I'm going to present to you these butterflies. When you release butterflies, it is a symbol of transition for the person, but it's also a symbol of hope for the survivor.